Hi there, I'm Christian Jones and I work for Manx Radio in the newsroom. So last week, the Isle of Man Post Office celebrated its 50th anniversary. So I sat down with the General Manager of Stamps and Coins, Maxine Cannon. She told me about the history of the organisation.
The Isle of Man Post Office gained postal independence after many, many years of attempting to do so, pioneered by Victor Neal and a great many others who recognised that postal independence was one of the key attributes to having your own identity as an island nation, and that came to fruition on the 5th of July 1973 when the keys of Regent Street were handed over to the Isle of Man Post Office Authority by the GPO, and we actually have those keys. The actual keys have all been restored and they're in their box, and they're going to form one of the centrepieces of an exhibition that we're hosting at Manx National Heritage.
And for people that don't know, what does postal independence actually mean?
Well, postal independence means that you can produce your own postage stamps. You know, that's the obvious. But also it means you're the masters of your own destiny. You can portray through the postage stamp heritage, culture, ambition, aspirations, anniversaries, both national. Of course, we've got so many this year. Manx Grand Prix, Isle of Man Steam Railways, Manx Wildlife Trust, and these are all on our stamps, and that's where we're able to bring the identity of the Isle of Man to a small piece of paper so beautifully that wings its way across the world.
And you've teamed up with a number of organisations. You've mentioned a couple there, the Manx National Heritage. You're also the Manx Wildlife Trust to plant 50 trees.
Yeah, so that was part of our commitment for the Platinum Jubilee, that from late Majesty Queen Elizabeth, Lord of Man, had as her centrepiece the Queen's Green Canopy. So through the sale of the 70th anniversary Platinum Jubilee stamps, we worked with Manx Wildlife Trust and planted 50 trees for the benefit of future generations. And it's sustainable. So who knows, that tree might well end up as a piece of paper that has a stamp image on it at some point in the future, which would be an absolutely wonderful legacy for our 50th anniversary.
What do you think the Post Office does that allows it to continue to survive? I mean, we've heard from the Chair of the Post Office in the past that measures will be needed to be taken to ensure its longevity. What do you think it is that makes the Post Office continue to thrive?
Because from 1973 to today, we've evolved and we've moved with the times where we could. Obviously, not everything is in our gift because we are a statutory board of the Isle of Man government, which has its benefits and its limitations at the same time. But if I think back over the 42 years that I've been at the post office, we've gone from 2 deliveries a day. On our stamps, they were all gummed at one point. Now we have a mixture of gummed and self-adhesives. We've opened up opportunities to buy stamps at many different places and in many different forms. And most recently, we've taken a huge commitment as a business to invest in a parcel sorting machine, which is state-of-the-art and reflects the change from posting letters to parcel deliveries. So all along, we've been supported by different executive teams and boards, and to recognise what the Isle of Man Post Office needs to be and where it needs to go. And we've done our very best with tremendous staff right across the business who've been committed to doing the best for the post office to achieve the goals that have been set out for us. While we're masters of our own destiny in many cases, we're part of a logistics jigsaw that's made up of many parts, and we're all only as good as the weakest link. So living on an island, I cherish, but I also recognise that we have vagaries that wouldn't exist if you were living in, onshore, the north of Scotland or down in the tip of Cornwall. Just that little bit of sea can bring all sorts of challenges. But our mail side in particular do everything possible they can to make sure that deliveries go out and that to our community on the island, but also that they can get off the island and into the network, the Royal Mail network, who is our main partner in the, for onward delivery and for international. And just as I look out here through your window, I look at the brand new Manxman, and I'm reminded that one of our oldest partnerships is with the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company, because they've been the deliverer of mail in and out of the island.
And something we've spoken about before is stamps. I mean, there's more to the post office than just sorting mail and delivering it. I mean, when we last spoke, you had just released the King's Coronations set of stamps. But, I mean, you actually get to design those yourselves.
Yes, we do. And the 50th anniversary set is a reflection on where we've been and where we've been in the last 50 years. And our stamp for the future is where we're going. This is really a testament to all those people who had the courage in 1973 to move over from the GPO to postal independence with the Isle of Man Postal Authority, and all those who've since that day, right up to the 5th of July 2023, wanted to reflect the heritage, culture, values, our place in the world that the Isle of Man is, and put them on a little tiny piece of paper, gummed or self-adhesive, as you can see here. There's nothing better than to see a stamp on something that you're winging across, to the UK and across the world, and someone at the other side is going to look at it and think, I didn't know that they did that in the Isle of Man, or fancy them being connected to... I always thought the Bee Gees were Australian. My goodness, they were born in Douglas. The fact that the Anzac Memorial in Sydney was designed by a Manx person, or that Tony Only, who was the who had Manx-born artist, had the Order of Canada. There are only ever 100 people that get the Order of Canada, and Tony was one of those. But for me, one of the most memorable times actually links in with Manx Radio, in that David Collister had a programme called Time to Remember. And we worked with David and yourselves to get the original tapes. And we had 20 people who'd been on his shows previously to bring their memories and all their memorabilia to the Braid Hall. And we called it the Braid Tea Party.
And there's one here which has got Professor Stephen Hawking on it. Where did the idea for that one come from?
Well, that was a strange one, really, because I always say you've got to press the pinball of life, because if you don't press the pinball, you'll never know where you're going to end up. We'd done some work for Waterloo 200. Tim Cook, who was island chairman of a local bank, he was chair of Waterloo 200. He obviously, with our connections to Waterloo and Captain Quilliam, he asked, could we do a stamp issue, which obviously we did. Somebody at Waterloo 200 saw what we'd done and said, oh, could you do me something for Agincourt 600? So we did them something. Then the designer of the Agincourt 600 branding, one of his clients was the Stephen Hawking Foundation. And of course, Professor Hawking had been invited to the island by Dr. John Taylor. Previously, they were good friends. So he already knew of the island, and he said, do you think you could do a stamp issue that ties in Professor Stephen Hawking and the Albert Einstein in the anniversary of the theory of relativity? I said, I didn't even ask permission. I said, oh, yes, of course. Not a problem. From that, I think I can tell you now, because it was all top secret at the time, Professor Hawking had a wish list, a bucket list of 10 things that he wanted to achieve before he died. And this required £10 million. So he was very good friends with the governor of the Bank of England at the time, who hosted a dinner for the top 30 business people in the City of London, who, 1 in 3 chance he's going to get his 10 million for these good deeds. And anyway, what do you give the top 30 people in the City of London that they haven't had before or that they might appreciate? Well, Professor Hawking's signature was obviously his thumbprint, because that was, with his condition, that's all he could do. So the stamp designer made a book about these 10 things on the bucket list, had Professor Hawking sign them, but on every single page of this book, of which there were only 30, signed by Professor Hawking, was an Isle of Man stamp from that issue. And I just thought to myself, obviously we couldn't say anything at the time because it was all very, very private. But I thought to myself, if our business hadn't pressed the pinball of life with Tim Cook at Waterloo, we would never have ended up at the table of the Bank of England not that many years later with an Isle of Man stamp, the words Isle of Man in front of the most influential people in the City of London, who were taking them back to their own areas. And that cost the Isle of Man nothing. It was the price of the design of the stamps that had already paid for themselves 10 times over. And that shows the power that this tiny little piece of paper, quite often no more than 40 millimetres square, can have, and the outreach worldwide. And that's only one we know of. I mean, I could give you tons of examples. They've been up to the space station. And hopefully in the not too distant future, they're going to go where very few men have gone before. So that's where we still have aspiration and ambition, and we, as the post office as a whole, it supports all the things that we do through stamps and coins to put the Isle of Man on the map, and to wangle our way in to places where you really would think, how has that stamp ended up in the Houston Space Center control room getting launched? Well, again, it's because quite often a curly-whirly helps if you send it in a package and say, do you think you could give us a hand?
Thank you for making it to the end of the Little Manx Radio newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider, so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.